Hello and welcome to the Aten Inquisition, where we spend a little bit of time getting to know the members of the populace of Atenville. We're your hosts, Morgan and Elizabeth, King and Queen during these seemingly never-ending times of COVID. This evening, we have the pleasure of interviewing His Excellency Tariq. Your Excellency, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tariq. I am new to your lands, newly returning to Atenville. I am newly elevated to the Order of the Laurel right before COVID, and so I haven't gotten a chance to spread my wings, so to speak. And I was the territorial baron of the Citadel of Southern Pass, the Outlands, which is El Paso. I know a lot of you folks just from, our travels here when we were Baron and Baroness. We really enjoyed traveling to Atenville, and also from my time here before. I've been playing since 1990, where I played between the Outlands and Atenville. I've bounced back and forth a couple of times. So I'm really happy to be here today, and I thank their majesties for honoring me by inviting me to speak with you all tonight.
Well, thank you for joining us.
We actually had the pleasure of being there for your elevation. So
yes, you were, and I was really grateful for that. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
So how did you find the SCA?
Funny story. Long story. Well, not really. So I had just gotten out of the service. I was in the Navy and gotten back. It hadn't been a good time for me. It was kind of a rough time for me. Hadn't been back that long, and I was dating a young lady from Albuquerque. I was living in Santa Fe. I just returned home, and I met her through Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I had started doing that, and I was on the cast. I was actually a member of the cast. Well, so I would go up Friday, spend the weekend with her, and then Saturday, Sunday I'd come home. Well, it was the weekend before Estrella War. She tells me, she said, "Hey, you want to see something cool?" I'm like, "Well, sure." So she took me to Alberon's fighter practice, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I see all these guys in armor and running around and beating each other, and I guess one of them noticed me, standing on the sidelines drooling, and so he comes over and he said, "Hey, you want to try this?" I'm like, "Uh-huh." And so they put me in basically a Freon can carpet armor, and they gave me a big old plywood door, handed me a club of a rattan, and then he tells me, "Okay, you see those guys up on the hill over there in red?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you heard lay on, run over there and hit them as hard as you can." I'm like, "Okay." Oh, sure. I said lay on. I did exactly what he told me to do. I charged them and didn't hit them too many times. They actually beat me down pretty bad. So when I got back up, I'm like, "That was great," and I did it again. And I remember there was actually snow on the ground. It was this was back when Estrella was over President's Day weekend. This was back in 1990, and so we just kind of did that for the rest of the day, and it was amazing. And so at the end of the day, we're all stripping off our gear, and I was sitting down, taking off my gear next to a couple of gentlemen, and just started talking to them, and they asked me if I was, where I was from, if I was from there, Albuquerque, and I said, "No, I'm from Santa Fe." Turned out they were too, and so they invited me to. This was Sir Craigon and Duke Leaf Iverson. They invited me to Craigon's shop to just kind of learn, see if I was interested. If I was really interested, I could start building my armor. And so that week, until they took off to Estrella, I was at Craigon's most of the time working on my armor. I didn't go to Estrella that year. My first event wasn't actually till Outlandish, but I was hooked. After that moment, I was hooked, and I've been in love with it ever since. It's been a wild ride, and I tell you, it really took me out of a dark place. Finding the SCA took me out of a really dark place, and I'm always grateful for that.
So I know for myself, there was this moment of clarity where I knew that this was where I belonged. Do you have a story or, any recollections from when maybe you knew that this was for you?
I think it was that day, honestly. From that moment, and just the kindness that Craig and Leaf showed me, and they took me under their wings. Craig taught me to build my armor, helped me build my armor, and Leaf taught me to fight. And that was, for me, that was from the get-go, from the moment I found it. I just knew this was what was missing in my life. And I've had to take a break a couple of times because of life, but I've always, that the first opportunity I was able to get back to it, I was back. And even when we moved to Costa Rica, we were desperate. We tried to start a group down there. it was that desperate for it, but it didn't work out. But I did manage to get some of my field crew to spar with me sometimes. I taught a few of them how to swing a stick, but so at least I got a little something out of it. But so the moment when I moved back to the States, when I got to El Paso, within that week I was already at a fighter practice, and then the following week I had gotten my armor back from storage, and I was fighting again.
Well, you definitely started with a couple of legends from the Outlands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. I count myself very fortunate and very, very grateful for that. Two amazing men that helped form my early careers in the SCA, and were both very inspirational, not only in the SCA but in my mundane life as well.
It's always funny, like you hear these stories of those first people that take people under their wings, and how they build this community where, like, you try to do the same for people that so you've played it forward in your time.
Indeed.
And so
Indeed.
It's just amazing, those people that can inspire that track that goes so far back.
And it makes such a change in your life.
It really did. I was like I said, I was not in a very good place, and I was going down a dark road, and I had a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and the SCA and Leaf and both of those, they taught me they gave me a way to focus it, and showed me how I was able to control it through fighting, because I had to. I couldn't be angry when I fought. So it really helped me mellow out, and basically focus. Use my powers for good instead of evil, so to speak.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about your persona and your heraldry. I mean, it's behind you, so.
Well, heraldry is it looked cool. it was inspired by my squire brother, Count Cameron. Had the checky. He had a green checky, and I just thought it looked really cool. And my cousin actually used to raise thoroughbreds, race horses, and he had this big black stallion named Saddam. That's from my dad's side, the Lebanese side of my family. And he had this big black stallion, Saddam, and I always thought Saddam was so beautiful and graceful, and so that's kind of where the whole idea of the black stallion, the black horse, came from. And I always thought he was a little maybe possessed, so that's why hence the red eye and the flames. But really, it was just kind of a cool. It was just very pleasing. It wasn't my first design. The first one actually had some inspiration from Duke Leaf's arms, but I just never could get it past. So I finally went this direction.
I like it.
And purple being my favorite color, so which had to be there.
So you're pretty accomplished. You've done a few things in the SCA. What are your goals still?
My goals. Well, now we have a new goal. We want to get, being here in Safford right now, there's not really anybody playing. There's a couple of people that we've talked to that have shown some interest already. But so our immediate goal is to get to, generate a group that we can play with, because I mean, we're both, Elliot and I are very social, and we like having people around, and we like having people in our home, and so that's kind of an immediate goal for us, is to try to, maybe generate some interest locally. That way we won't have to travel as often, to the Baronies. Not that we're afraid of travel or traveling. I mean, we're outlanders, for Christ's sake, but
But still, it's nice to be able to do it close to home.
yeah, it really is. I mean, when we were B&B, we had, almost every night of the week that we weren't traveling, we had something going on in our house. I mean, between when Ellie started the choir, and then we had A&S, and then some people just kind of wander and show up, and I'm always working on projects, always at my work table, and people would they know that, so they'd show up and say, hey, I had a question about doing this, or just want to see what you're doing. And so we always have people. I mean, so for us, COVID's been hell for us because we haven't had anybody around. We've been grateful to have each other. So I mean, we're not. I know. I have some friends that are live alone, and they're just extra rough on them. So at least we've had each other, and then a few key people that have been kind of in the same situation where they've been completely isolated. So we'll kind of see them like in the backyard and stuff. But I mean, it was nothing like what we used to do. So we're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to exploring a little bit more, being a Laurel, because I was elevated, went to one event, and then COVID. So I mean, I haven't really even had a chance to feel my oats, so to speak, in that respect.
You haven't even been to a circle yet, have you?
I actually have. I was at the weekend of my elevation. There was a short circle on the Sunday.
Oh, right.
And then Elbron midwinter, there was a pretty significant circle. So
Okay.
So I have gotten to sit through one, but so it was interesting.
But now you get to sit with a whole new group of people.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that, and I really like meeting new people, and having my friends, but then making new friends. It's just kind of how we roll,
Well, I'll make you a deal. As things start to open back up and we have a little more freedom to do things, if you need, I can try to drag some fighters to your area. Like if you want to, like if you get some people that have some interest and you want to, like on a weekend, like you should be able to show them more fighters.
That would be amazing.
I'll throw people in my truck and I'll drive them up there.
Woohoo! That would be amazing. I appreciate that very much.
That'd be fun.
So in all of your time, what jobs or arts that you've done are you particularly proud of?
Oh, I think I'm pretty proud of the time that we were Baron and Baroness. We took, Citadel at the time had been in a real slump, and the numbers had been really low. When I arrived, it was pretty critical, actually. And my first event in Citadel was the investiture of our predecessor, and I met him that day. And I was just getting back after a break from the SCA, so I was full of energy and excitement, and so I jumped in and helped out as much as I could, and we got the numbers up, but then we had a lot of new people around that just didn't really know what the SCA, they were members, but they didn't really understand really truly what the SCA was. They just thought of kind of cool SCA medieval stuff, but there was no culture left. I mean, there were so few old guard playing that really Citadel had kind of lost the culture. So when Ellie and I were selected, we created a pretty substantial administration plan on what we were going to do, and we got a few things done. There's a few things we didn't, But I think the most important thing is we got the kingdom to look at Citadel again, which, there hadn't been much going on.
Mhm.
So, people just kind of thought, Citadel was not really, was kind of dormant. And so we brought it back to life. I mean, obviously not just us. I mean, we had a lot of help.
Sure.
Because, a B&B can't do it alone. I mean,
No.
it takes a village. And,
No,
but,
but you have to have a cheerleader. You have to have somebody driving the charge. So
yeah.
you didn't do it alone. You certainly drove the bus, though.
Yes. Well, so I think sometimes Ellie actually was the bus driver.
Well,
she is such an amazing woman, and I am so blessed and fortunate to have her in my life. And she is definitely the better part of us.
She's pretty cool.
she is pretty good.
Yeah, I like it.
Like the B&B job is so rewarding.
It really is. It really is.
And I think so many people get scared away from it because some people have a bad time when they do it, and so they talk really down about it, like it's terrible. You'll have no free time. They only talk about the downside. You don't hear a lot of people talking about all the positives.
It's a mischief.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is what you make of it, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
Depending how one runs it, and the attitude, and there's a lot of work. And we served twice as long as anybody does in the Outlands. Usually, most Outlanders it's a 2-year stint. We did 4, and it was a long run, and we would have stayed longer, but it got to a point where it was some changes with finances and with work. It was getting to the point where it was getting to be a little untenable. So we really had to step back from it.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't happy about doing it, and especially we weren't very happy about when we had to do it, because our successor ran unopposed, which, I mean, isn't a good or a bad thing. We would have liked to have had more. I think it's healthy that there's that you have more than one candidate.
I'd agree.
Because it makes, the candidates have to kind of shine more and really develop more of a plan up front to kind of sell themselves and sell their plan.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, it's not to say that it's, in the long run, in the end, it's any better or worse, but it seems to drum up more excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of missing from the baronial, the polling and such of when we stepped down. It didn't have the same kind of energy. But really, I have nothing. I mean, we had good days, we had bad days, we had really bad days. Oh, yeah. But overall, I mean, it was a very good experience, and it made us. I know sometimes I've heard you hear it can destroy couples.
Mm-hmm.
I think it made us stronger.
Same.
And because we had to work around, issues that may or may not have come up, and we chose to, we stuck it out there, and we chose to work together, and I think the barony benefited from that. I know I'm a much more focused person than I was before. I think honestly, the stint of being a baron helped me mundanely as well in my mundane career.
Oh, for sure.
Believe it or not. So I mean, it's people sometimes forget about that. I mean,
oh yeah.
And it is. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And herding monkeys and cats.
Well, and I honestly, I think the people that have a bad experience are the ones that walk into the job thinking that it's going to be all about them.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one in charge, and it's all about me. And the ones that have a great experience are the ones that walk into it knowing that I'm doing this for the group. I'm stepping up for the barony.
For them.
my time, I'm giving my time to them. So you walk into it with the right expectation.
Yeah, I believe that. I agree with that. And Ellie and I are our whole idea, and she says it better than I do. Because in fact, I'll probably butcher it. But we're doing our best to make the world a little bit better place every day. And some people are in a position where they can do more than others. But every day that we get up, we try and do something, even if it's a little thing, to make the world a better place for those around us. And being B&B really put us in a good position to be able to do that. And so, I mean, it was overall a very positive experience. And don't tell Ellie, but I'd do it again. Not sure if she's ready yet, but I'd be willing to do it again. It's just it was a good experience.
Nice.
Well, in the area that you're in, it's going to take a long time to get to that point.
Oh yeah.
Maybe she'll be ready.
So maybe by then.
Maybe by then. Well, I keep threatening to enter Crown now that I don't have to work weekends with my new job.
Yeah.
I've been threatening to enter Crown. She's like, oh, I don't know. Well, I think she would make an excellent queen. But
just remind her, we did 4 years. This is 6 months.
Usually.
I mean, usually.
I was gonna say. Well, so a friend of mine, when we were running, or when we've been selected, she had been Baroness of the Citadel twice, actually. And her first time was like fairy tale. It was a great experience, and the second time was just miserable. So she kind of had both. Well, she kind of explained to us the difference, and she said, when you're being Crown, it's like running a 50-yard dash with eagles picking at your head. Well, being Baron and Baroness is like running a marathon with chickens pecking at your heels.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it's it's shorter, but it's a lot. I mean, I don't have to tell you.
It is.
Yeah,
yeah. It is.
But
tell us about something that you love doing that is not in your normal path.
Oh man, I don't think I have a normal path. To start off with, I kind of dabble in a little everything if I can. I mean, if I see something that, with me, I'm actually kind of more project based in my interests. Like, I learned to block print. I taught myself to block print, not because the initial process was interesting to me, because I saw something that I really liked. I'm like, I want that. So how am I going to get that?
Same.
I'm gonna have to make it. Okay, so I taught myself embroidery, like the hat that I'm wearing. I taught myself to embroider because I wanted one of these quilted caps, and the only way I was going to get it was if I learned to embroider. And so I tend to be more project based like that. So I'll see shiny thing, and I'll figure out how to do it. Not all the time, but lately I've been cautiously interested in cut and thrust. I think I'd be a terrible rapier fighter because I've been doing heavy for so long. I might accidentally whack somebody instead of poke. So I've just kind of avoided rapier for that. I know me. But I think maybe cut and thrust might be something that I could probably do. I've been really interested in, and again, I'm interested more because I've seen some really beautiful later period Turkish helmets, and that would be awesome. How could I use that? I'll just learn cut and throw. There we go. So,
you could wear those in the heavy field too.
Yeah, you could, but I mean, like have you seen those death masks? they're really cool, and I had this idea how I could make it work for cut and thrust, with the eyes and stuff. And so I've kind of been obsessing on that. So I guess I probably could, but since I do earlier period, those masks would be too late for me. So doing cut and thrust, I could have my cut and thrust persona that was later period and get away with it.
Alter ego.
Yeah, there you go. But
there's certainly a good group of them here, and like they've gotten organized enough that we've actually been running for a while, a couple of years now. There's a King's Cut and Thrust champion.
Oh, excellent.
So there's actually a tournament after every coronation.
It's really neat. I like the idea of it, and as I'm getting up there, and I know I'm not gonna be able to fight heavy all for the rest of my life, because things break like body parts.
Yeah.
And
I refuse to agree with that.
well, I'm trying to not agree with that either, but my elbow is saying otherwise. It's been and I've been jonesing to fight, when I finally broke down. I've had a pill like my entire life, SCA life, and up until this year I'd never used it.
Wow.
I kind of look at it once in a while. I should probably hit that. Maybe I go out, maybe swing at it a little bit. But every house I've ever lived in, I've always had a pill. And this year, not last year now. I did the 100-day pill challenge,
Yep.
the Reaper challenge, and mostly because I couldn't hit anybody.
Right.
But
so I have a pill drill for you that we can discuss later. But it basically by the time I'm done, I've thrown 1,000 shots with both hands.
Each hand.
Each hand.
yeah,
It
I
only
was
takes like 45 minutes. It's all good.
I was doing that for the challenge. It was 100 shots, but I was actually throwing in the thousands.
Gotcha.
And it was just because that's the other thing. When I get
It's okay. It was good.
that's what it lasted. When I get going on something, when I get really excited about something, I kind of go all or nothing, and sometimes I overdo it. And I think there were a few days that I probably overdid it. Now, if I could just take that motivation and that joy and that energy that I had, on the pill, and actually take it on the heavy field, I'd be doing really well. But I had trouble translating that over. All the years, it's one thing that I've never been able to translate over. As big as I am, I don't hit very hard. I mean, I don't. I have trouble throwing a hard enough shot, honestly. And I think it's just, I've never been able to get the body mechanics. I don't know if it's just I'm built weird or what, but
I'm sure it's just a little tweak in what you're doing.
Yeah, it might be. We were lucky. About 2.5 years ago, brought out Duke Sean came down to El Paso and did a workshop with us.
Yep.
It was pretty fantastic, and I learned a lot. But unfortunately, it was kind of on the heels of COVID, and then I had a few things in life happen, and by the time I was ready to really get going with it, COVID hit, and so
yeah.
I haven't really been able to apply much of what he taught, but a lot of it made sense. It really did. A lot of the body mechanic stuff just really made sense. And I like the fact that it's designed to not hurt you.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's been really great. And
Well, hopefully we can encourage you to travel a little bit, and I can help you work with stuff.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we will definitely be traveling. That's the beauty of this new job is no Saturdays. That was the curse of the job I had in El Paso. Is I was any event weekend I'd have to take a vacation day
Ugh.
for a Saturday. It was terrible. It was great for our archery program because I was able to negotiate early on the space to hold archery out at the museum, and we did something to my to my knowledge, rather unique in the SCA. I don't know if it is, but I've never heard of any other program like this. What we did is we did a joint project or a joint program where we invited the general public to participate, and we have our trained marshals. We did it under the museum. We started doing it on the museum's grounds, and the museum actually paid for loaner equipment. And then we did it under the coverage of the city's insurance, so we were really well covered.
Nice.
What we would do is we teach people, just the general public could come out, and we'd invite them out to try archery. And we recruited into the Barony about like 25, 30 people over the years of doing it. And then we had other folks that would come out, and they were regulars. They'd come to archery every weekend, but they never joined. Yes, they were never really interested in the medieval part, but they would come out to archery. But we picked up like between 25 and 30 people over the years of doing it there. And it was fantastic because it helped the museum, because it brought a group of people out that would not necessarily have normally visited the museum. And the demographic, and then it brought us, it gave the SCA, some exposure, because then we have, the museum demographic coming out, who maybe wouldn't have necessarily seen us or heard of us in another aspect, but would see us out there every week. And so it was really fantastic. It was sad to leave that program behind, really, because when COVID, we had to shut it down. And now that I'm not at the museum anymore, I don't know what the future of the program's going to be, if anybody's going to pick it up.
Well, it's always funny too, because I think about how long I didn't know about the SCA, because I didn't even find it till I was almost 30.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And I would have been part of it from the minute I had found it.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
And I grew up in a part of Caid that is got a heavy SCA, group. So it's just a matter of not being in the right place at the right time. So
yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because I in high school there were two guys in my that I knew really well that were in the SCA in high school, and I never knew about it. I don't know, Master Baylor the Kurgan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I went to high school with him, and then there was another guy. He's out in he's in Ontier now, but these guys, they played regularly, and we were not like best friends, but we were friends. We knew each other pretty well, and then we'd game together. We played D&D down in lunch and stuff, and never mentioned this crazy thing. I think one of them mentioned one time about going camping with a bunch of people at Outlandish. He went to Outlandish, and he said something about going camping, going to Outlandish. So he mentioned Outlandish, but he never said what Outlandish was.
Right.
And then I find out later, it's like, hey, you bastards.
Could have been here.
Right?
Yeah, I would have been. But I guess everything comes in its own time,
Yeah. So what would you say you're known for?
Funny you should ask that.
I feel like there's a story coming.
There's a story. So let's see. It was we were still B&B, and I guess it's been about 5 or 6 years now that I was recruited by the Battlemore for Battlemore staff as the social media coordinator, and I was really lucky with because of my job. I had access constant. I was able to sit, had the internet constantly, and so I was able to do, I see something pop up and I'd be able to send it out. Well, so I was in a good spot for doing, pushing Battlemore. So I would, I pushed Battlemore and I pushed Battlemore and I pushed it again and I kept pushing it, and then I started doing that with other stuff. And so fast forward to a couple of years later, Slane was Crown Princess, and we were at it was a Kingdom ANS and the Queen's Prize. Jackson and Anna were crowned. I think, no, I'm sorry, it was Bela and Anna were crowned. And Selene and Rorik were crown prince and princess. And so the crown had called a meeting with the flowers, which was basically our grant level in the Outlands, art for ANS. And they met with the Laurels, and they wanted to meet with the grant levels as well, just because they wanted to push some ideas, and they wanted to hear what we had to say about it. So Selene was there, and I don't remember how it came up, but I said something that, well, I could help push this out. Oh no, she asked me, she's like, can you help us push this out? And I said, yeah, sure, I can do it. And she's like, yeah, good, because we have this thing that we call it maloofing. It's basically the way that I would promote stuff and push stuff out. They started calling it maloofing. So I'm like, okay. Well, and that's kind of how I got in trouble with, or not in trouble. That's kind of how I got dragged into the university. The Outlands University, I kind of did the same thing. I heard it existed and was, and so, I saw a post. It was in some on virtual class post, and I think it was out of Meridies or something. Somebody posted asking if there were universities in other kingdoms, and I happened to be on there, and I saw that somebody from our kingdom said, "Yeah, well, the Outlands has one," and I'm like, "No way." So I followed the link and I found it, and then I started posting. I said, "Did you know that the Outlands have a university?" I didn't, and I just blitzed it out there. And next thing I know, one thing led to another, and then I was asked to be the dean because I basically started a wave of interest. People saw my posts and then started posting, and then it was just. So I think that's probably what I'm known for. That and block printing.
Yeah.
I'd go for the block printing. But I don't have to say.
I'm going to remember the other thing though when I need to get something out.
Yeah, I was gonna offer my services for because I do. I mean, I do spend. I love social media, and I use it a lot. So especially now that that's kind of my only contact with the real world.
It's a tough one. Like I love and I hate it.
It really.
Being able to stay connected with people, because I have friends everywhere. Being able to stay connected, but then some of the communication that gets put out is toxic.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that that's there. I so far have been pretty successful at maneuvering away from that, being able to dodge it. But
it's hard to dodge.
It really is, especially in the position you're in. I mean,
I have to attack it.
Yeah. I mean, with me, now I just people start posting stuff, and I just start posting pictures from Costa Rica. It doesn't quite work the same for y'all.
Nice.
But,
So what is your advice to a new member?
Okay. Enjoy it. You found the SCA. You are attracted to being a part of this wonderful, whimsical, crazy world. Enjoy it. Find what you like. Focus on focus on what brought you. Whether it be the social aspect, whether it be the artistic aspect, whether it be swinging a stick, whatever. Enjoy it to your fullest. Don't start focusing on the cookie. Focus on the love of the game and what you get out of it. Because if you love what you're doing and you're excelling at what you're doing because you love what you're doing, the cookies will come. If that's important. For me, I don't feel that this is still really weird to me. it feels so surreal. I mean, yeah, granted, I haven't actually been able to play either. That kind of adds to it. But just the whole idea that I am now a peer is just because it never was. Actually, I'm lying. I wouldn't say that. I learned that that's not what was the most important thing to me. When I was younger, of course, you know, I was running with Leaf and those guys, and so fighting, becoming a knight, that was the thing to do. And then when I moved to Aidenvelt and aspired to do Garen, it was, okay, well, you got to be a knight. That's your whole purpose in life is you're going to be a knight. And I realized one day, actually, I realized it recently. Recently, within the last 6 years, when I was living in Aidenvelt and I was fighting, I was doing everything right. I was winning tournaments. I was going to literally practice every day. I was, 7 days a week. If there wasn't an event, I was fighting. I was at practice. Whether it be one of the baronies or the college or His Grace Trelawn used to have a private practice for members of his lineage, and so I would get to go to that, and so I was doing everything right, and I thought, wow, right, I'm doing everything right, so I got to be close. I got to be close to getting knighted. I'm doing everything right. I look back on that now, and I realize at that time that I was never further away from being knighted because I was doing it for the wrong reason. I was doing it because I wanted the cookie. I wanted to be a knight. And there's nothing wrong with wanting, to aspire to be peer. There's nothing wrong with it. But when it's the focus, we focus so much on becoming the peer that we lose track about what the peerage means and what the peerage is. And to me, the peerage isn't an end; it's a beginning.
Great.
And it's a responsibility. And sometimes I sit back and I wonder if I was, ready for this responsibility. I must have been, because His Majesty, their Majesties, they deem me ready. So who am I to argue with them? But sometimes I ask myself, am I going to be a good peer? Am I a good peer? Am I going to live up to what the peerage should be?
To be perfectly honest, I think that feeling that you're talking about is actually what makes the best peers.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to question whether or not you are a peer, whether you're good enough, which means you're always going to be striving to be better and to be more. Because like you said, it's a beginning, it's not an end. There's no end. So if you talk to a peer that was like, I'm a peer now, and like that's the end for them. I would rather talk to somebody that's okay, I'm a peer, now I have to learn how to be a peer. Right. Now I get to strive to be better. That's what I think makes a real peer, is somebody that never believes that they're enough, so that they're always aspiring to be better than they were yesterday. So
I agree.
So I would not beat yourself up too bad.
Well, nobody else is beating me up, so I'm.
You can fix that.
Soon enough.
So who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Oh gosh, I have a list. Well, of course, Leaf, even though he's no longer with us. What Leaf was and what Leaf represents and represented to me, or continues to represent, really, is I think about him a lot, and I think about what he was and what he gave me, and it inspires me to continue and to do my best and to give my best. My wife inspires me in everything. She's going through a really rough time, with the cancer battle, and thankfully it's we're looking like we're nearing the end, and
Yay.
and we're coming out, she's coming out on top. I mean, there's still some fighting to be done, but she never lost hope. She never lost her sense of dignity, her sense of responsibility, her sense of humor. I mean, there were moments that she just, she would just couldn't get up. There were moments that she would just go into a panic almost. There were moments that she would cry, but there were, so many other moments that she was able to lift her head up. And, despite everything that she was going through, she was still able to take the time to help others who were not going through, not having a good time, or, cheer people up or cheer people on. And with, this whole situation, I mean, I had a few times where I was, really knocked down, like when I got furloughed, and then when I got laid off and things, and it was tough. I mean, she was always, no matter what she was going through, she was always there. She's a very strong and an amazing person, and she just inspires me like no other. Frank, sorry, Duke Aaron.
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, he was such a good guy, and he's such an honorable dude, and I love Duke Aaron. He was very, when I first moved to Aden, he was very kind from the get-go, from the very beginning, and he's another one that just always seems to keep his chin up.
Mhm.
And even through adversity. Granted, I missed out on some of his reigns, but I was there for his first one and part of his second. So I don't know how those ones went, but I know, at least when I saw him, he always takes people's feelings into consideration, and to me, that's, really important, because well, these hats, these shiny hats that we wear, really are a burden. Like I have to tell you, but it's those who wear them well, and those who continue to wear them proudly are super inspiring. I mean, you too. Well, the four of you, really. I think you all are doing an amazing job, and keeping the kingdom motivated, keeping people, in communication, being strong. The fact that you drove around the kingdom to deliver scrolls, I think that was just absolutely fantastic. This show, taking the time to communicate with your people and to touch with your people is super. It's great.
It was a little selfish. It was for us too.
Mhm.
You're going to get something. Inevitably. We don't live in a vacuum. Everything we do, we hope to get a little something out of it. But
being that you were a Baron, like the best part is giving awards.
Oh God, yes.
And the best part of it is being in that moment with that person, that touching moment when you're giving them the award, and there's all that emotion and all that feeling. Well, that doesn't exist in the virtual world.
No, I can imagine not.
In a virtual court, you don't get any of that payback. You don't get any of that feedback. And traveling the kingdom helped us with that. It gave us, it recharged us, because we didn't realize we were missing it.
Yeah.
Until we got to experience a little bit of it. So.
No, that was great, and I know it really, I can't speak for the folks, the folks out in TV land, but I know I can speak for Ellie and I. That it was really an amazing thing, and it was very. We were super. We thought that was the coolest thing ever, and I know it's a lot of work, and you guys are still trucking along, and I'm sure you're just dying for a coronation, but. But
it'll happen someday.
Yeah, but that really is it brings a lot of inspiration. Another one is Sir Conrad. He doesn't really play a whole lot anymore, other than he likes to. I think the only reason he hasn't stopped playing yet in the FCA is because he likes to fight too much. So he's down in Citadel, and he was the first person that I encountered when I came back, and we spent when we first came back to the States after Costa Rica. I came up 7 months ahead of Ellie because we were waiting for her visa. So I actually lived in this very same camper. So I was not looking forward to coming back. But the time that I spent a lot of time with him. After practices, we'd go to his house and we sit back, we throw back beers, and we just talk. And we talk about chivalry. We talk about, because he'd been playing forever as well. And so we, people that we knew, mutual people that we knew from before, but just, the conversations that I had with him, I was so honored that he was willing to speak at my elevation as the member of the chivalry. Even though he really didn't play anymore, but that he actually came out just to speak.
That's cool.
And it was really, because he inspired me so much in that respect, and speaking as not only as a knight, but just as a peer. Speaking of the things that a peer should be, and we had great debates and great discussions and great beer too. He's got good taste. He's got really good taste in beer. So it was really wonderful nights, and I miss having that time with him. Because once Ellie got here, and then we became B&B, and I think since Ellie got here, I think I've only been able to go over to his place like 3 or 4 times in the 8 years since then to go visit with him. But I still cherish that time with him.
So you've been around long enough to see lots of traditions come and go. Do you feel like we've lost anything over the years that you wish would come back?
I do. And it may sound maybe a little silly to some folks, but back when I first started, I should say now, when becoming Baron, I noticed a tradition that really was, to me, was second nature, and it still is. I noticed that people weren't doing it anymore, and that was Baron giving deference to the coronet, to the crown, whether it be a Baron or the crown or the count. It's silly, and it's not like I'm offended that people don't do it, but to me that was part of what made the game magical. And to have that, a lot of people don't do it anymore. They just, they don't really pay attention to, like walking to Estrella, for example. Walking down the walkway and you see the crown of Caid, and of course back then everybody would step aside, and there'd be a lot of pomp and circumstance. And now you don't really see that as much anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was it's a little bit of the magic. And like I said, it's not an ego thing. Like, oh well, I had to bow when I was young, and now that I'm a Baron, and I'm wearing a hat, people should bow to me. That has nothing to do with that. It's more just it was kind of part of the game, and I see less of the theatrics overall. You still see it sometimes, and when you see it, when people do it, it's really fun. We actually staged a public execution at Outlandish our first year as a B&B. We staged this whole thing. We actually, I set it up with. So when I started playing, I dragged he's my brother from another mother. I dragged him in with me, of course, and where he'd always been kind of on the fringe, and never really played to the level I did. But he's always been there. He's actually one of the guys that built the roads at the new Outlandish site. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty.
Yeah, that's a thing.
But he's just he likes to kind of sit in the back. In fact, he got his AOA because I was kind of direct, and I asked His Majesty at that outlandish, told him all these things that Fenris had done all these years, but he'd just never been recognized for it, and so yeah, His Majesty granted me that boon, and finally, after 26 years, gave Fenris his AOA. But it's because Fenris was never, I mean, he was always in the shadows.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, speaking of shadows, so Ellie and I, we'd been Baron and Baroness for a short time, and we had our retinue. And of course, like I said earlier, there was people didn't understand the traditions of, the SCA. So we had all these new people who didn't know what being a retinue was.
Right.
And so we decided to come up with a little bit of theatrics. So we had Ellie kidnapped at the event. And of course, the guard, baronial guard, she was kidnapped right under the nose of the baronial guard. It was hilarious. And in fact, they walked her right out. And two of her guardsmen walked right past her, but as they were, shuffling her out of camp, and they just didn't even notice her. They even greeted her as she walked out. But so we had this whole thing going on, and I might add that we neglected to mention it to the kids that this was going on. So
No.
our kids kind of panicked that their mother had been kidnapped. So it's like, oops. So, and I'm not sure if you've met our daughter, but she does have a flair for the dramatic. We really saw it that night. Well, anyway, to go on. So basically, they took her. Fenris took her to their camp, and they sat and had a great time. I think they even dragged her to the pirate camp and stuff. So
Nice.
she got to get a tour of how the other half lives, so to speak. Because Ellie was relatively new to the SCA as well. She had only been playing about a year when we stepped up. But, yeah, ask her about it sometime. She'll tell you. She has a lot to say about it.
Wow.
Surprise.
Yeah, she was given her AOA. She was given her AOA at our polling. So
crash course. It's okay.
It really was, and she did, and part of the reason they chose her is because even though she wasn't in the SCA, she's had years of experience with nonprofit type organizations organizing them.
Gotcha.
So I mean, she kind of knew the business end pretty well. And then, me with, being in the SCA since, the Dead Sea was only sick. I kind of had that side cornered. So it worked out really well. Well, anyway, so we found her, right? And we had a culprit who was dragged off in chains. And then we talked to the Baron and Baroness of Alberon at the time, and we asked them if we could have some time in court, and we asked their majesties. We told them what we were doing, and everybody was on board with it. So and I wish I could find the video, because the video was amazing. Ellie really just shined. She was talking about how the kids, we asked their majesties to bring justice on this fiend that had taken the Baroness from her family, and Ellie was just playing it up, and so we had so His Majesty basically let us met out the justice. So Citadel actually at that time, specifically for this, we actually have a baronial executioner, or at least we did during our tenure, and so he came out and with the hood and the big rubber axe, and we just did this great public execution, and it was a blast. And we had people come up afterwards, and that was like the most fun I had at court in 15 years, just because it was such a crazy thing, and it was fun. But I remember I got the idea initially because somebody had done that when I had first started at one of my early events. That there was a gentleman that was executed during a court, the barony of Alberon, and it was just so much fun, and I remember that so fondly. And so we had to do it again. And we tried to build the theater into our courts whenever we had a chance. I mean, we couldn't do it all the time, but we did another time. I had this big stuffed Viking that my grandmother had given me that just so happened to look like somebody who lives in Naroon, the Shire just north of the Citadel. Um, um, the guy looks like a garden gnome. He really does. You know, the long white beard, and well, this Viking looked like him. And so I don't know if you've ever read this story or heard this, the Return of Martin Guerre. It was a case. It was late French, right, period French case, court case, where a man had left the village and run off the village, leaving his wife and family behind. And for years, and he comes back like years later, and it just rejoins his life. And well, a few things happen, and it turns out that he's an imposter because the real Martin Guerre returns. And it turned out that this guy just happened to look enough like him that he thought he could get away with it. He did. He got away with it for years. So we did this with this stuff Viking, and we decided that that Gorm was the fake Gorm, and the stuffed Viking was the real Gorm. And we got his wife involved and everything, and so we ended up doing another execution. But we ended up. She got cold feet at the last second, and so we ended up having to execute the stuffy and not him. But we were really, but it was so much fun. It was such a blast.
That's a So what is your favorite event?
Outlandish. I didn't have to think about that one. It was my first event, and I have such fond memories of that event over the years. It's a fun event. I mean, you all have been there. It's a great site. Although it wasn't a bad sites over several years, but I fortunately missed all of those.
Us too.
Yeah, it was the new site that we're at now is very similar to the original, what they called the experimental site, which was the site for years and years and years. And I don't know, there's just something about Outlandish it's got a bit of whimsy to it. It's just a lot of fun. Everybody there it's like a different feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I love all camping events. I mean, I love wars. I love everything. I love, fighting. I rarely fight at Outlandish, actually. In fact, for the longest time, I just would end up, for some weird reason, something would always happen. I would never get to fight at Outlandish. I think like 1992 until last Outlandish.
What?
It was the first time I fought since '92 at an Outlandish. It was
That's
weird.
crazy.
But it was something that always happened. I mean, I'd have my gear and something would come up and I'd miss the fighting for whatever reason. Usually I think it had something to do with day drinking, but we won't talk about that.
Slane bribed us to go the first time by setting up a tent for us. So all we had to do was show up. And
It hailed.
it hailed, but we still had an amazing time. And the only one I've missed since then was when my ankle was still broken.
Oh gosh, yes.
But all of the ones between that we went to.
Was that the year that Tam was king, by chance?
No, it was before that.
That was before. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Because it was before you won your first crown.
yeah, it was before I won crown because it predate, like I won Outlandish and then later won crown the same year.
That's right. Yeah, this Tam was the king that allowed us to do the execution.
Yeah.
Fits. Yeah.
And it rained.
And we reigned at the same time as Tam.
Yeah, we were.
That was our first.
Oh, okay.
That was our first reign.
Okay, so it was the year before was your first. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's just Outlandish. There's just something magical about it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just a lot of fun. It's the people. I mean, it's honestly that's what it is.
Yeah, and it's the same people. A lot of the times, the same people you see at other events. It's a different. Everybody's in a different mindset for it,
It's not trying to be a big war either.
Right.
It's just trying to be a small baronial war.
And it's just outlandish. I mean, I love it. It was my first event, so of course there is that too.
Yeah.
That has that that extra.
Okay. There he is.
So yeah.
No, you're good. So if you could add something to an event to make it better, what would that be?
theater,
Hmm.
theatrics. Because to me, that's part of, that's kind of part of what helps us to, suspend, our what I like about camping events, especially the reason I like camping events so much more is not so much for the camping per se. It's just the fact that I can really disconnect from mundanity, from the mundane world, from the real world for a weekend or for however long it is.
Yeah.
Being on the Battlemore staff, the last Battlemore 10, the last one we were able to have, I was deputy event steward. So I had to be on site from, early, well before the event started. And that was fantastic. It's the longest I've been in an event. I was there like 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful. I loved it. I hated it coming to an end. And I was looking forward to doing it again last year, then again this year. And hopefully they'll let me do it next year. Because this year I was supposed to be the one of the two principals, event stewards. With the move, it's complicated things. I don't know if they're going to allow me to stay on or not. I'm hoping they will.
Yeah.
If they don't, I understand, but I would really love to be able to, especially because we've been working on this event for 2 years.
Yeah, for sure.
It would be nice to see it through the end.
Well, there's a certain magic of being part of the event to that level.
It really is.
Where, because of how close we live to Estrella, we've been part of the event staff for
At least 10 years.
At least 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we're almost always part of that early on crew and watching it develop from it's just a raw site to, and now it's an event. And there's
It's like a city. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It just has it brings a different dimension to the event for sure.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does. But I think the theater, so that, adding theater to it, bringing back some more of that theater, would make it, I think, would be what I would like to do. There was, I think, one of my favorite single events. There's a couple actually. There was one that Viscount Sir Beryl used to organize called Enduro Quest. And every year he did 10 of them. Beryl has this thing about doing things in 10s. So he did this Enduro Quest, and every year it was a different theme. And in history, sometimes some of them there were some fantasy ones, but it was mostly kind of based on more like history or mythology. And basically, it was you had a party formed of a mix of heavy fighters, rapier fighters, archers, a little group of a little bit of everybody. And you went around the site, and it was a quest. There were stations where you had to go and deal with riddles, or sometimes it was like encounters on the road where you'd have to fight fighting encounters or different things. And it was so much fun because it was just it was this big theme. And 1 year it was Japanese, and I think it was that the year that we won. My first year I was on the winning team, and it was so much fun that I volunteered. I wanted to be part of it because I had such a good time. I wanted to give back to the event. So the next year it was a Norse theme. So we were so I was one of the encounters, and it was just such a blast. And then another one was War of the Roses. It was kind of the precursor to Battlemore, I imagine. It was kind of up in the same area. The rapier fighters, they organized this amazingly cool tournament, and I call it tournament loosely. Basically, from when you stepped onto the site to the end of the day, to the end of the event, you had to be ready to fight.
Oh yeah.
At any time, at any place. And they had like constables running around. So you'd be dueling, because the first announcement is like there's no dueling allowed on the streets, and any duelists will be arrested, and then they go over the rules of how the rapier was going to work. And just like all weekend you'd see like rapier fighters traveling together, and so like one would be the second, basically you'd have the two marshaling and keeping people keeping it safe. Then you'd have the two fighting, And then if a constable would see it happening, they'd come run to try to arrest them. And it was fun to watch. I can only imagine how much more fun it would have been to be participating in it. But it was just stuff like that was so much fun. And those are like some of my favorite types of events. And being Baron and Baroness, we were able to do a couple of events like that. We actually kind of swiped that idea of the constable thing for one event that we did. It was one of our last. It was called it Hostilute. It was a summer camping event, and we were at this really beautiful lake up in around Cloudcroft. And we had tournaments, and the whole event was designed around King Renee's Book of Tournament. And the autocrat, she got super excited, and she really delved into the book, and so she tried to pull as many elements from the Book of Tournament into the tournament as possible, and it was really fun.
That's cool.
We had such a blast, and so we were able to bring a little bit of that to that event. But that's what I would love to see. More of that kind of theatrical part.
And I think that's one of the things that gets lost because people don't travel as much as they should.
Yeah.
Is that you don't get to see what other groups are doing, and because that's it. Like you said, you swiped something that was really cool. I think there's not enough of that happening. There's not, like when you see something that's really different, like bring it home, like because events get stale. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great that we're always looking for new things to make them better.
We actually at that event we had jousting on stick horses. It was hilarious. I think it was less fun for the fighters and more fun just for the crowd. We trying to balance the 9-foot spear and then a stick horse, and it was a lot of fun. But everybody, even though everybody who participated in it said they had a blast. Even watching, and then the judges, because we, of course, all the tournaments were, there were judges. There was 4 ladies that were the judges, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time.
I think that's always a successful when you can pull in the crowd to participate in the fighting, so that they have a vested interest in the fighting. That's the worst. I've been to events where like nobody even cares. There's like a tournament going on and nobody's even watching it.
Yeah.
Like it might as well be a fighter practice.
Yeah, pretty much. That's something else that you're right. I have noticed that people don't watch tournaments as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the
betting going on.
Yeah, one of the best tournaments I ever fought in was it was only knights, so it was only knights could enter. It was a torchlight tourney, so nobody. It was at Battlemore. It was if you were above a knight, you couldn't fight. Like if you were a counter, a duke, you couldn't fight in it. If you weren't a knight, you couldn't fight in it. And it was the tournament was strictly for the royals during their feast to bet.
Oh, cool.
Nobody was tracking anything. It was just like a bear pit style tournament.
Boslav was king.
And Boslav was king, and it was literally just to bet on the fights.
That's fun.
It was because I got to fight it. It was I was only a knight at the time. Only a knight.
Only a knight. Once a night is enough.
Right?
The Templars always hold. They have a torchlight tourney at Outlandish, and actually that was the tournament that broke my dry spell. My Outlandish fighting dry spell. I fought in that tournament, this last one. And the year before, I was sitting and we were drinking and betting on I sat with basically my guardsmen, because Ellie hadn't gotten there yet, so it was just it was Stag's night. So we're watching the fighting and we're drinking, and we had our champion was also Alberon's champion, and then he Fontaine's also.
Oh no!
I think he was like all 3 Southern Baronies champion, right? And so he felt kind of guilty because he hadn't really spent a lot of time with us, So we made him sit down and drink with us, right? So we got him a little schnockered, but we had such a good time watching that tournament.
Well, you know, those are the moments that I never forget. Those are the moments that I cherish the most. Is just the, you know, it's the what happens like on the sidelines. Not like I don't travel to go to fight. I travel to have those moments after fighting, like sitting around a fire. It's those moments of camaraderie that happen that you can't find that anywhere else.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that's probably what draws and keeps people in the SCA is having that connection.
Yeah.
And it's, the SCA is beautiful in that there's, no matter where you go, wherever you find the SCA, you're always going to have at least one thing in common with them, with somebody. And that's just such a cool, wonderful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. I'm getting the side eye over here. So it has been an amazing evening chatting with you. I've really enjoyed it. It's been too long since we've gotten to talk anyways, but
I agree.
We actually got to know a little bit more about you that we might not have heard just sitting around. So
I hope you're not going to hold it against me.
not at all. Not at all. I'm actually looking forward to when things get back to an in-person and we can share a beer and have more stories.
Definitely. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to making some new stories, making some new memories.
Well, and I'm glad too that hopefully this interview will give, you know, more Adenvelters a chance to see who you are before they meet you in person.
Yeah.
So they know to avoid me as they can see me coming. I'm just kidding. Oh God, it's him.
That guy. No.
I don't think that's how that's gonna go.
No. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Well, it was my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me to sit and spend some time with you and reminisce and share, you know, my experiences and some of my stories and silliness with you and with everyone who's going to be watching this and who watches it. And I'm looking forward to you know, being part of this wonderful dream in Adenvelt. I love my home kingdom. I love the Outlands. I always will. I will always be an Outlander at heart. But there has always been a special place in my heart for Adenvelt.
We are certainly ecstatic to have you and your lady join Adenvelt. In fact, we might have been like, because the Outlanders have been getting a lot of wins lately from Adenvelt.
Yeah.
We've had a bunch of people move, and I told them that you and your lady made up for most of it. So,
well, thank you. We appreciate that. Hopefully, we'll live up to that.
I have no doubts.
So we are certainly we're looking forward to spending time here and becoming, you know, part of this populace and giving what we gave over there to give here. I mean, that's what we do. We do this because we love it. We believe in the dream. We believe in what it can be, what it is, and what it brings to people. So, I mean, we do this because, like I said earlier, like, you know, as Ellie says, you know, this is our small way of making the world a better place.
Yep,
absolutely.
And we take that very seriously, and we enjoy doing it. So we'll continue.
All right.
All right. Okay. Well, then with that, we will say good night.
Good night, and thank you, Your Majesties. Thank you for giving me the time, and I look forward to a time when we can actually see each other in person.
Us too.
For sure.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.